Food is not that dissimilar from sex in the sense that you have
Totally.
to have a good relationship with it.
Totally.
And a lot of ultra-processed foods are akin to like mouth porn.
Let's talk about human connection for a second. What is the processed food version of connection? Social media. So now we are more connected and yet more lonely. And it's because we've replaced whole natural connection with this heavily processed version of it.
As one of my go-to experts in the realm of fat loss and fitness, what would you say is the best diet to boost GLP-1 naturally and lose fat?
One of the main pieces of advice that we'll give is try to hit your target body weight in protein and eat it first. That's it. In fact, there's 2 dietary rules that I will tell people. If you just follow these 2 rules, the high odds are you will fall within a healthy body fat percentage. Just those 2 rules right there.
Now, if you do happen to be on one of these GLP-1 drugs, what are the best kinds of foods to eat?
If you just follow your appetite on a GLP-1, you'll eat very low calories, which will result in weight loss, but will also result in significant muscle loss. And it's very important you strength train appropriately. And here's why.
Sal Di Stefano, what's going on?
Yeah.
How you doing?
I love you, man.
Love you too.
It's a good time. It's always good to come on your show and see you.
Love seeing you. Love every time we get to catch up. I wish we lived in closer proximity to one another because we've still never had a workout together, which is like crazy given how long we've been such close friends.
Don't feel bad. I don't typically work out with almost anybody.
That you don't, neither do I actually. Yeah.
It's like a solo thing. You know, your audience needs to know this about you. The reason why I like you so much is you are as great as you are on a podcast or on video. You're that person off air, and even better. So you're so not fake. You're very authentic, great guy. So people need to know that because this space, I think a lot of media spaces are filled with fake personalities. So.
Warms me to the cockles of my heart.
Okay.
No, I feel that means so much coming from you because I know that's one of the things that I prize about our relationship and that I value so much about you is that you are, you're one of the most authentic voices and you've got one of the kindest spirits of anybody I've ever met across any field.
Thank you.
Just a really stand up solid guy, and I'm so proud of you for all the content that you're now putting out about your spiritual journey.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Which I think is it's amazing, and I just love seeing your, this new mode of creative expression.
Thanks, man.
And,
appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's huge, the most impactful thing that's ever happened to me. And not that we're going to go deep in this, but what's interesting, you and I have a lot of things in common, and I think in the terms of the way we look at things. And now, of course, I'm so interested in the data on what happens to people when they find faith, and how are the behaviors different, and is it can you control it to just the social component or the structure? And it's pretty remarkable. The data on it is it's mind-blowing on what it does generally for people's behaviors and what we would categorize as making someone, I guess you call them a good person. So and a lot of the stuff is just things I didn't know. I didn't know that this it had that big of an impact. It's like a duh, right? But so anyway, no, I appreciate you saying that, man. It's very impactful.
No, it's probably also, really good for your health. Not to draw it necessarily back to health and wellness, but feeling connected spiritually and to a community larger than yourself, is one of those major levers that we talk about quite a bit, actually.
It's we this every time we record together, we talk a little bit about this, but there are methods and ways and structures that help lead to better longevity, health span, health, mobility, all those different things. But if you peel it all the way back down, it all comes from, it has to come from a really good root or source. And what tends to happen is we prize and value the symptom or the result and ignore where it comes from, and that actually can lead to a lot of bad things, right? So if I value the look of health, eventually I'll lose my health if that's what I end up worshiping in that regard. And so at the root of everything is what is your purpose and where are you pointing all your other values towards, and a strong faith. It's a really great place to root yourself in, because it does. Whatever is at the top is what all of your other values submit to. And so in health and fitness, what I always say, or what I often will say is, you want to pursue this because you want to care for yourself, like somebody who's worth taking care of. And if you do that, what's naturally baked into that is balance. And by the way, I'm going to be very clear. This is very hard for me. So I struggle with this myself because I can very much make fitness or muscle building, I would say, an idol. And so that means I'm not great at it oftentimes, which, thank God allows me to communicate it well to people. But it is a struggle. But nonetheless, that's the guiding force. And when I used to train and coach people, when I got good at it, I should say, or better at it, when I kept pointing back to this, it really did lead people in the right way. And eventually what it does is it turns this into a great relationship. And if you have a good relationship with fitness, the result of that is you look fit and healthy.
Yeah, and it bleeds into all these other areas of your life.
Totally, 100%. And the balance, again, is baked into it, because what you often see too, and especially in the fitness space, is this veering towards this kind of orthorexic attitude or relationship with fitness where, fitness is great, but it's not the ultimate great. But if you make it the ultimate great, it's not very healthy, right? So it looks like stress around counting my calories and my macros, and I have to eat perfect. And if I miss a workout, it ruins everything. And well, that's not healthy either. So when you bring it back to, okay, I'm going to care for myself like someone I care about, then you get some balance, because what that means sometimes is you and I are going to hang out and have pizza.
Yeah.
Maybe not a lot, but sometimes we will.
Yeah, of course. I think, once you're able to make this sort of a lifestyle for you, you realize that there totally can be and should be room for indulgences and fun, and that the prize isn't a certain body fat or number on the scale. Yeah. The prize is ultimately, a sense of having a life well lived.
Yes, 100%, because there is real value in enjoying food. There's real value in enjoying the people around you with food. There's real value in sometimes relaxing and not being super active. That's a real value. Now, if you place that too high, well, then you run into problems. And what we've done in modern societies, especially around food, is we've placed the enjoyment of food so high that it's resulted in poor health.
Yeah.
And it's happened so long now, Max, that many of us don't know how to value anything else. We've actually never really learned that. So, we grow up in this way, in this environment, and so food to us is really mainly about enjoyment and how tasty it is. And so when you try to, when I coach people, I'm like, okay, let's look at food for its other values. I try to coach them to connect the dots to things like digestion and health and energy and performance. And it's interesting because at first people are like, I don't know what, okay, let's, it has to be a conscious effort. But then slowly what ends up happening is, and you do this very, very well, you often crave foods not necessarily because of their palatability, but rather because of some of these other values. So if you want better digestion, there's probably foods that you're like, man, I really want to eat that. Or if you want to feel sharper, like, I really want to eat that or perform better. So, because there's also this myth that, if I don't always eat tasty foods, I'm not going to enjoy eating these other things. That's not true. You actually develop a relationship with food that becomes balanced, and then you enjoy and crave things that serve you in a more appropriate, balanced way.
Yeah, I think food is not that dissimilar from sex in the sense that you have to have a good relationship with it.
Totally.
And, sex can be used. Obviously you can have sex for pleasure. You can have sex for connection.
Yes.
You can have sex for a spiritual purpose. You can have sex, and then at one end of the spectrum, there's sex with a person that you care deeply about. And then at the far end of the other side of the spectrum, you've got pornography, right?
That's right.
And I think a lot of ultra-processed foods are akin to like mouth porn.
It's such a great analogy. Pornography is the processed food of sex. And you're right, 100%. It's funny, you're talking about data. when you look at the data on, and I didn't know this was I didn't even know this existed, this data. The people who are most satisfied or who report the highest satisfaction in their sex life are couples who've been married for decades who are in their 50s and 60s, which is so counter to what I guess the media would have you believe. Because, I mean, you could be fit and look good in your 50s, but you're far from what would be considered, or what the media would consider your prime sexiness. And you're with this person for 30, 40 years, like at some point you run out of new acrobatic things to do. And they're dedicated to each other, and they report the highest satisfaction in their sex lives. And so what that tells you is exactly what you just said, is that, and this is what we do very well in our world and society, is we take things and we narrow them down to this one value, and then we maximize and exploit it to a point where it becomes dysfunctional. So connection, let's talk about human connection for a second. What is the processed food version of connection? Social media. So now we are more connected than ever, and yet more lonely. People are reporting higher rates of loneliness. In fact, which is just wild, loneliness rates, although we're starting to see a reverse trend on this, which is great, but loneliness now is getting reported in young generations, at rates that are a bit higher than even older generations, which has never happened since we've ever recorded this.
Wow.
Like, what is going on here? And it's because we've replaced whole natural, connection with this heavily processed version of it, which is wild. So I love that analogy, because you can like take that and just spread it into so many different things and say, what's the processed version of what I'm looking for? And let's stay away from that.
Oh, 100%. When you're eating ultra-processed, hyper-palatable ultra-processed foods, I would bet that it's neurobiologically no different than consuming pornography. It lights up the same dopaminergic regions of the brain. It's far unlike anything that you'd experience in real life, with the camera angles and the lighting and the fake sounds and it's just so over the top, and it doesn't provide any actual nutrition at all.
No.
It might feel good in the moment, the same way that, diving into a pint of ice cream or whatever feels on your tongue in that moment.
Yeah.
But provides no lasting satiety value, no lasting nutrition, no lasting health benefit.
No, and it follows classic addictive, processes, or if you were to list like, okay, what are the characteristics of something that's addictive? They follow that. It's like you get this excitement, then you get this downregulation of excitement requiring more novelty to achieve the same feeling, and then withdrawal when you remove yourself from it. So like when I would train and coach clients who ate a very, a predominantly ultra-processed food diet, when I'd take them off, there was a withdrawal. And whole natural foods were bland. Like they would eat fruit and they'd be like, it's not really that tasty. It's like, well, give it a second. Let's give it 30, 60 days, because things are going to shift. And then before you know it, an apple is going to taste so good. But right now your brain is comparing the signals that an apple is sending you to what you used to eat, which was like gummy bears,
Yeah.
It's apple flavored candy does very different things to the brain than an apple.
I remember when I was like an adolescent, back pre-internet, I remember buying my first magazine, my first porno magazine, and it was like a two-dimensional. I guess it wasn't it was two-dimensional, still image. That was, I guess, the equivalent at that time of an apple.
Yeah.
And now it's like, for modern viewers, like modern audiences, like the modern male brain, like I don't think you could get off to a still image like that.
No, I've had an expert on the show who actually helps men break the addiction from pornography, and I've talked to other people, and there's a lot more awareness around it, which is cool. Like I think for the first time in a long time, people are like, this probably isn't good, and you're getting young men now who are actually getting off. They're like, this is not good. I'm going to not do this anymore. And boy, when you look at the data around it, it is. It's one of the worst things we've introduced to society. And we're starting to realize just how bad it is for relationships, for how you view yourself, how you view other people. the way that even pornography itself is radically changing to continue to appeal to its largest consumers. And so it gets more violent, more taboo, more extreme, and it has these effects. I like to go in this direction because both men and women are affected. Women also consume pornography. Men, obviously, at a much higher rate. It zaps a natural drive in young men that leads to a lot of important development. So I'll give you an example. So I grew up as a teenager in the 90s. Okay. And, I'm a little older than you, although I look a lot older than you.
No.
Yes, I do. Like you, in the 90s, to get your hands on pornography it was hard. It's like if you found one in the garbage, the dumpster, it was like, it was very, very difficult.
And you held on to it for months.
Yeah, and it was the same one forever, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Very difficult.
Pages would get stuck together. Yeah.
Stop. So it was very difficult. So what does this drive in a young man cause us to do? So you're 15 years old, you're at home, you've got hormones going, and you've got this this drive. So what does it get you to do? It gets you to go out of the house and go talk to girls. What does that do for a young man? Well, getting a girl's attention and getting women interested in you is actually a big deal because you can't be an idiot. You got to kind of be funny. You got to present yourself a little bit. You got to know how to be confident. It's scary. You're going to get rejected. 99.9% of men get rejected a lot. And so you got to learn how to deal with that. Does that shape and develop a young man into something better? Yeah, it totally does. Now place yourself as a 14, 15-year-old boy today with access to the insane, hyper-palatable, infinite, video, whatever, pornography. He's at home. He's not venturing out into that scary world where that girl is going to say no to him. And he's not having to learn how to present himself. This is what you figure out as a teenage boy. It's like, well, that didn't work. Why didn't it? Because women are really good gatekeepers. So it's like if you come across as dangerous, douchebaggy, just interested in me for certain things, like I'm going to kind of turn you down. And so you kind of have to learn. And that's a good thing for a guy. You got to figure this out. Well, now that you don't got to, you're just stuck in your room with your computer or your iPhone. And this is what you see. This is what you're seeing with young men. They're not doing, it's funny. I have a young staff. And I remember 5 years ago, I had this young man working for me and he went to a party. And I'm like, hey, how'd it go? And he's like, oh, it went great, whatever. I'm like, did you talk to any girls? And he's like, well, it really doesn't work like that anymore. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, if I see a girl I'm interested in, I look to find her social media. Then I try to add her as a friend or messenger. If she replies, then I'll go approach her. I'm like, whoa, dude, like she's right there. Just go talk to her. He's like, well, then she might say no. And what if she doesn't want? Like, this is wild. What's happening? So it zaps. It takes away this natural driver that, I mean, isn't everything, but it is something that helps young men develop into something that would pass as presentable to women, which is a higher standard than a young man would have for himself.
100%. I mean, I kind of, to me, it sounds like a form of social hormesis, a social stress that is beneficial stress.
Yes.
It compels you to develop a personality and gumption and stick-to-itiveness and grit and, all these characteristics that I think are really important to living a well-rounded life where you're anti-fragile at the end of the day and where you can hone in on a target and go after it.
And because look, talking to girls is scary when you're a teenage boy. It is very scary. I don't know if teenage girls even know how scary this is because they're typically the ones that are approached, if anyone's approaching anyone. It's scary. You got to build up courage. And then you got to get over the rejection, which does that translate into, beneficial skills in real life? Yeah, absolutely. Because that's what life is all about. It's about stepping out of your comfort zone and failing and okay, I got to get back up and
I've over the course of my life thus far, I've made a couple of approaches and most of them unsuccessful. But I will tell you that I've never regretted I've never regretted stepping out of my comfort zone to make the approach.
Yeah.
I've always regretted not having the balls to do it.
Yes.
Like whenever I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I've always regretted it. I've like dwelled on it, whereas even if I was rejected, I was always proud of myself for doing it.
Yeah. It's, growth always happens when you're uncomfortable. There is no other reason for growth otherwise. So you have to, you could apply this to exercise. Like the exercise is a stress, and that's why your body adapts. If you have no stress on your mind or your personality, then you're just not gonna, it just doesn't happen. So you have to be uncomfortable, which nobody wants to be uncomfortable. And if we take away everything that makes us uncomfortable, now you have to try and seek it out, which, let's be honest, Max, for most of us, myself included, things that make me really uncomfortable, I'm probably not going to choose. I might choose the thing that's slightly uncomfortable. But if you're like, hey, Sal, let's go skydiving. No, that's like super scary for me. Would I grow from it? Probably. If I was forced to, yeah, I would do it. Would I grow from that? Yeah. So, that's where growth comes from. And so, we're really good at eliminating discomfort. And we've done it very well through our markets. What has that resulted in? In some ways, it's made life safer and easier. In other ways, things are really hard. People are more anxious and lonely. We're unhealthy. It's funny. I use DoorDash all the time now. Like, it's so funny, right? It's like, because I just don't want to drive, 10 minutes to the store. But what is that? I have this conversation with my wife. So I'm like, what is that also eliminating? Like, I'm not around people.
Yeah.
I'm not talking to people. I'm not, doing those things.
I go to the supermarket every day.
Yeah.
Even for like one or two things, I just go because I recognize the value in those micro interactions.
Totally.
Eliminate comfort at your peril.
Yes.
Eliminate discomfort at your peril.
Yes. Or boredom. We've done a really good job of eliminating those quiet times when we got nothing to do, which is very uncomfortable. Arthur Brooks cites this study. I love this study where they took a group of people and they put them in a room and they gave them a button that would shock them and they left them in there. And most people would rather shock themselves than just sit there.
Wow.
Yeah. Just to show you how uncomfortable, how much we hate being bored. So I try to remember this when I'm like in line or when I'm like sitting at the airport waiting at my gate. I'm like, wait a minute, maybe I should just sit here.
Yeah.
It's funny too, because the younger generation, it's interesting. Gen Z is really interesting at some of the directions that they're going, which is they're really starting to move into this kind of stuff. Have you heard of like raw dogging boredom? This is like a trend right now. Have you heard of this?
Tell me about it.
These kids are filming themselves and posting where they're just sitting for 15 minutes with nothing. They call it raw dogging boredom. And they're just sitting there. And I'm like, this is so awesome. I think they've like started to identify like, I can't sit still for 15 minutes without anything.
That is so funny.
Yeah, and it's like a challenge.
Wow.
You know how often I used to raw dog boredom when I was a teenager?
Yeah,
that's all you did, dude. All the time.
Exactly. You didn't have a choice.
No, that's what you did.
Damn. Today we got these smartphones. That's so funny. Wow. Yeah, I've seen like raw dogging flights.
Yeah.
Like no media.
I love it.
I had to raw dog a flight recently. There was no Wi-Fi on board. I was like, I didn't know what to do with myself.
Yeah. Did you talk to somebody?
My mind was running like, yeah, it was crazy. No, I didn't talk to anybody, but I probably should have. But because that's what we did back in the day.
Yeah. I know. I love it.
I want to talk about with you GLP-1 drugs because it was just announced the current administration is actually taking steps to make them more affordable, to broaden access to them. There's now going to be some degree of coverage from Medicare for these GLP-1 drugs, tirzepatide, semaglutide. So I love having you on the show, obviously for many, many reasons, but as one of my go-to experts in the realm of fat loss and fitness, what would you say is the best diet to boost GLP-1 naturally and lose fat?
Yeah, so foods that provide satiety or have the highest satiety effect are the ones that you're going to want to reach for. High protein foods always rank the highest. So anything that's very high in protein will give you more satiety, generally speaking, than foods that are high in carbohydrates or fats. So this is why one of the main pieces of advice that we'll give when it comes to diet on my podcast is try to hit your target body weight in protein and eat it first. That's it. In fact, there's 2 dietary rules that I will tell people, and I go as far as say this, and I'll repeat this anytime somebody asks me. If you just follow these 2 rules, the high odds are that you will, over time, eventually fall within a healthy body fat percentage. What does that look like for men? Probably between 14 to 16% body fat, maybe, give or take a percent. For women, you're probably going to be in the low 20s with body fat percentage. If you just did these 2 things and you were just consistent with them. And it starts with avoiding ultra-processed foods and hitting your target body weight in grams of protein and eating it first. That's it. If you did those 2 things, your appetite, your cravings, it all falls within this kind of natural, what's good for you amount of caloric or energy intake. Okay. So hyperpalatable foods or ultra processed foods, they just make you overeat. And we've talked about that many times on your show. They're engineered to do so. The data on those is the best studies on food are those because they have really good control studies where they cross the groups over and it's like, they make you overeat, everybody. That's just what they do. So
very clear.
Cut that out. Then eat your target body weight in grams of protein. That's a lot of protein, everybody. So if your target body weight as a female is 120 pounds, which is you're a small woman, so most women are probably closer to 140, 150 pounds, that's a lot of protein. That's like 30 to 50 grams of protein for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So when I say this, people are like, okay, I'll eat high protein. It's like, no, actually see what that is, eat that first, and watch what happens to your appetite. It zaps your appetite. So, you want to have 30 grams of protein for breakfast. It's not 2 eggs. It's like 6 eggs, 7 eggs, right? It's like 7 ounces of meat for lunch and for dinner. And that does a lot when it comes after. And what's cool about this, Max, is it's not a fat loss diet. It's not a muscle building diet. It's both. This is what's great about this is it will naturally, based on your body's natural signals, you will eat enough to fuel strength gains and performance gains in the gym. And you will also not eat too much to where you gain body fat. In fact, you'll eat where you'll lose body fat for most people. Okay. So if you're underweight, you'll actually go up in weight. If you're overweight, you'll go down in weight. And it brings you in this kind of natural, just those 2 rules right there. But the protein one's a big one. Now, over time, the satiety effects of protein start to fall, but it takes a while. It takes like a year for that powerful satiety effect to really start to kind of wane a little bit. But by that point, you're there. Like you're doing great. You're built muscle. If you're strength training, which you probably do, your body fat percentage is kind of falling. And it's cool, Max. I talk about this so often now on my show. We've made the point so well and so consistently that people are doing it, and you should see the messages we get, especially from women. I think women have a tougher time with this because it's like they're constantly bombarded with information that's like, you're overweight, eat less, do this, that. And so like, okay, fine. I'm just going to trust you guys. I'm going to follow this. And then they'll write in and be like, I didn't believe it. I followed it. And I can't believe, I feel like I'm eating a ton. My body looks totally different. I'm strong. My body shape has changed. Like I have lots of energy. And all I did was those 2 things that you told me. I mean, that's it. Because once you eat that target protein and you stick to kind of whole foods, I don't care what you eat after that. So you eat your 40 grams of protein, eat it first. I'd like to have some potatoes or some rice or some fruit. All right, go for it. Eat until you're satisfied.
Yeah.
Watch what happens.
I feel like historically men have been a lot more protein conscious. And then a lot of the messaging that I see aimed towards women tends to be like prioritize fiber, eat more fiber.
Yeah. And there's some truth. There's a reason for that. Women tend to have slower... they tend, if anyone's going to have issues with, slow digestion or let's say constipation, it's women. That's a hormonal thing. So that's why when women will talk about digestive issues, they'll typically talk about constipation or bloating. And the right kind of fiber will help with that. Fiber, I'm glad you brought that up. If you were to, so protein is at the highest for satiety. What's underneath that? Fiber. So it goes protein, fiber, then it's fat, carbs, starches. So fiber helps a lot with satiety. And so people are always like, what's a good source of fiber? I love berries. I love berries for that. You get a cup of berries, you've got yourself a decent amount of fiber and some good low glycemic index carbohydrates, very nutrient dense. They're delicious. It's one of my favorite sources. But yeah, aim for fiber would be next if you were to ask me what's the third thing.
Yeah, I feel like more men would probably benefit on average from eating more fiber, and women on average would probably benefit from eating more protein.
Because of the messaging?
Yeah, because of the messaging, the crisscrossing of the messaging. The same way that like more men would probably benefit from not skipping leg day, whereas that's all that women do, and many women would probably benefit from putting more of an emphasis on more of a focus on their upper bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, so
yogis would probably benefit more from strength training.
Yeah, strength training from yoga.
People just tend to like live in their silos.
Yeah, you're right. But generally speaking, if I'm communicating differently to men and women, it has more to do with the behaviors than it does to like specifics. It's typically the behavior. So for women, oftentimes, although it's changing, Max, I have a 15-year-old. She's actually about to turn 16. In fact, I went to go look at getting a car for her the other day.
Big milestone.
Yeah, scary milestone. It's so funny. So she's 16. She's just starting to get into working out, and she's interested in building, which is telling me that the messaging's finally getting to women. Because, for most of my career, I had to convince women to like build muscle, and I had to like really do a good job of selling it to them. And I think the younger generation is starting to figure it out, that building muscle is like the best way to get lean and the best way to get the body that you're looking for. But generally speaking, I'm talking to women about, hey, you got to eat sufficient amount of calories to fuel the performance and to get the goals you want. And then with men, the conversation is, typically like, eat healthy, don't overtrain, and don't lift weight that makes your form looks terrible. Type of deal. Don't hurt yourself.
That makes sense. I'm glad that the tides are turning. When it comes to optimizing for protein specifically, what kind of foods are you talking about? And specifically what I want to know is a lot of people now are talking about the protein-to-calorie ratio.
Yeah.
What is that all about?
Yeah, again, people are getting, they're looking at percentage of calories coming from protein. So again, here's where we start to get into the in my opinion, they're communicating the wrong thing. Hit your target body weight and protein, the rest of it takes care of itself. If we start to get into percentages, when I'm talking to the average person, they're like, what? How do I figure that out? Okay, I got to count my calories and then count my grams of protein, and then how many grams of protein equal this many calories, and then do a little bit of math, and then boom, it just doesn't translate. It doesn't work for most people. So what the data is showing is a high protein diet is what it's showing.
But then like, how do you communicate for somebody who's totally naive to the nutrition facts panel, for example? Like they look at a hot dog or bacon and they're like, oh, that's a protein food, right? It's from an animal. It's got to it's got to be a good source of protein.
Yeah, no, I would go figure out what your target looks like in a serving. So what does 30 grams of protein generally look like? It's 6 ounces of meat. What does that look like? It's 6 eggs. What does that look like? It's this much Greek yogurt. What does that look like? It's this much fish. What does that look like? And now you have a general idea, and then that's what you aim for. So there is a little bit of education, but that would be as far as you would need to take most people. When we get into like macro tracking, which there's nothing wrong with understanding macronutrients, proteins, fats, and carbs, and what makes up each, and what does 50 grams of carbs look like? Nothing wrong with that. But in my experience, Max, when people start to get, for lack of a better term, religious about tracking macros, it leads them to a stressful place where now the diet is not mentally healthy. And we get a lot of callers that will call in that are chained to this and like afraid to get off their macros. It's it's similar. It's like weighing yourself every day. Like the scale gives you some information and it can be valuable, But if you're weighing yourself every day, stop doing it. In fact, more often than not, I tell people to stop weighing themselves and to just pay attention to things like energy and performance and protein intake rather than the scale. And I tell them the scale will take care of itself. You have to break up with your scale. I mean, numerous times I've told people to stop weighing themselves for 6 months. Don't weigh yourself. We'll check in later. Don't worry about it for now. So we have to be careful with the metrics, with getting really detailed with them. Macro counting is valuable for bodybuilders, stage competitors. If you're a guy and you want to get down to 9% body fat, you probably have to get more granular. Very few men can get to 9% without like starting to count things. If you're a woman and you want to get below, 18% body fat, you're probably going to have track macros. But I'll also say this, it's not all that it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
9% body fat won't make you happier than 13% body fat. That's a fact. In fact, you're probably going to be less happy. It's not better for performance. It's not better for hormones. A man's testosterone tends to not do well when they eat in a way. And I say tend to because there's the genetic, don't look at the high level, pro athlete, type of people because they have a genetic makeup that puts them in that category. And so they can walk around, they can eat Skittles and walk around at 9% body fat. That's just, don't compare yourself to those people. But most men, if you chase 9% and you stay at 9%, your testosterone probably is going to suffer. Women even more so. Hormone profile starts to get out of whack when they get typically below 18% for too long, definitely around 15%. You'll see women will lose their period and have signs of low testosterone in women. Estrogen, progesterone starts to get a little messed up. So
what about for people who set that as a temporary goal for themselves? Like I just, for the first time in my life, want to get to a muscular single-digit body fat.
There's a lot you can learn doing that. If you have a healthy mindset, I think you can learn a lot about your body getting that lean. You can really start to figure out how certain foods affect you at that level. And what does that really feel like? And then what happens is it paints a better picture for you when you then get back up into your maintenance body fat percentage. So I think there's value in it. But a lot of people, most people, when they start to go in that direction, they're not starting from necessarily the healthiest place. And it just results in worse behaviors. It's like we'll get callers that will call in sometimes that are asking us if they should compete. And oftentimes it's for the wrong reasons and they're already have they have some body image issues. If you, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you have body images at a 3 in terms of like how bad it is. So it's like, oh yeah, I got some issues with my body, with my body image. Go get on stage and get critiqued and you're going to be a 10. Like you're going to throw yourself into the fire of body dysmorphia if that's the case. So I don't see anything wrong with it. But you got to come from, like, if you told me, Sal, I want to get down to 9% body. I know you. I know you're healthy. I know you would stop if you noticed poor health outcomes.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I think that'll be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought that it must be really hard to guess yourself to a muscular single-digit body fat, but that's not necessarily a health goal. That's more like the same way that some people enjoy training for like 5Ks and things like that, or whatever they're called. There's like a forever sustainable lean.
Yes,
that should require no tracking. That should just be about having a healthy mindset towards food and having these sort of heuristics, these guardrails in place. And then, for the people who decide once in a while to do a cut, I think there's got to be some educational value there.
Totally. You know what's funny too about this, Max, is if you step outside of the fitness sphere, so the fitness sphere is largely made up of fanatics, higher percentage of body dysmorphia. So if you move out of that and you ask 1,000 everyday women what body fat percentage they generally would find the most attractive in a man, it's around 13%.
It's not super shredded.
It's not 7% body fat.
Yeah.
If you ask men, generally speaking, again, outside of the body dysmorphic, fitness space, what body fat percentage they find women the most attractive, it's typically in the low 20s, 21, 22%. So I think that tells us a lot about, because where's that coming from? Typically reproductive ability and health and vitality. So we've just distorted the heck out of what we think is healthy.
Did you see the study that came out? I think it was like last week or the week before. A new systematic review showing that disordered eating behaviors appear to be more common among fitness professionals than the general population. You've been talking about this for years. Yeah. But across 9 studies, they found elevated rates, particularly among personal trainers for disordered eating behaviors.
Okay, are you ready for some controversy? You'll probably find more people that struggle with mental health issues who work in mental health too. I think it's part of what drives you. I also think it can make you a great trainer. When I'm talking to somebody and coaching them, and the average person is dealing with body image issues, okay, we're surrounded by imagery and just we're not good enough, we're not perfect enough. We're sold it constantly, okay? So the average woman, the average man has, to an extent, this kind of a little bit of body dysmorphia, okay? In some cases, a lot. When I'm coaching someone, I know how to speak to it because I suffer from it. Like I deal with this, you know, and I say this all the time. Like I do not do the best things for myself. In fact, I train myself in ways that I would never train another person. And this is just true across the board, and personal trainers in particular. By the way, it's also saved me because it's a little bit of a guardrail because I can see my hypocrisy and like, what am I doing? What am I doing myself? Like I would never allow someone to do this. But yeah, of course, you're going to find that. I've been saying that forever. It's so funny. You find me a shredded, jacked guy or girl, and I would bet money that they suffer from some form of body dysmorphia.
But I guess in a way it compels you forward. It's also, I guess, questionable, like being cognizant of your macros might seem to researchers as a, relative to the norm, relative to the way that most people eat. Like that, it depends, I guess, on the definition of disordered eating in that study. Yes. Which, by the way, for anybody who wants to look it up, the first author was Carroll, came out in 2025 in the journal Eating Behaviours. Yeah. But yeah, it's...
Your fit... Okay, so... whatever you place up here, everything underneath it submits to that value. So if the way you look is so high that it's above enjoyment with your family, if it's above growth in other areas, then what ends up happening is everything submits to that. So you sacrifice birthdays, events, you sacrifice connection. Because it's not at the right restaurant, or I can't eat this, or I'm on vacation. You know what happens to a lot of fitness people when they go on vacation? One of two things. Either one, they truly don't enjoy the vacation because it's like, I got to eat like this, I got to do my workouts, I got to whatever. Or more commonly, it's this on-off button. So now I'm on vacation and it's crazy. And I'm going way off. And then I come back and I'm like, oh my God, what have I done to myself? And that's, but by the way, that's true for any value. But yeah, when that study came out, you didn't need to do a study.
Did you guys talk about it on Mind Pump?
We talk about this all the time. All the time. And you know what's, okay, here's what's really, here's what people need to understand too. So much of the information that comes from the fitness space is coming from people who suffer from this the most. Now, why are they getting the attention? Because of the way they look. So they're shredded, they're jacked, and they're telling you, Mrs. Johnson, who has 2 kids and a job, or, Mr. Johnson paying a mortgage, who's like, I just want to be fit and healthy. And they're listening to this guy tell them it's beast mode and it's about discipline and food is only fuel. And, it's like, no wonder the information or isn't helping people. You're getting it from all these wackos. So now, again, I trained people for over 2 decades. So a lot of what we communicate is filtered through that. And let me tell you, I learned, and many of my early clients learned the hard way. It's like, it took me a long time, Max, to figure these things out. That it wasn't just a lack of discipline. I remember this light bulb moment where I was an early trainer. So I must have been, I don't know, in my 20, 21. And I'm training people. And at this point, I thought the reason why people couldn't get the results they wanted was because they just lacked discipline. You just lack the discipline, right? You're just not, you don't want it bad enough. This is what I would have said. And then it dawned on me. I'm like, I'm training very disciplined people who are executives and successful with other aspects of their life. Maybe it's how I'm doing it. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe it's how I'm training people and how I'm communicating to them. Maybe I think I'm talking to myself, and I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to somebody who doesn't have this fanaticism around fitness. I need to figure out how to fix this for somebody that's not going to become crazy about it like me. And then I started to become far more effective.
I shared a strategy that I use recently on X, and I wanted to run it by you because I feel like you'll probably agree with this approach. I personally, under most circumstances, so like 90% of the year, I just abide by the template that you're describing.
Yeah.
So I prioritize protein. I eat fibrous vegetables. I eat high satiety foods.
Yes.
And that keeps me effortlessly. I mean, knowing like prioritizing certain foods,
That's right.
but foods that I enjoy.
That's right.
So
That's
like,
right.
Protein dense foods like red meat, eggs, things like that. 90% of the year, that keeps me effortlessly lean.
Yes.
What it doesn't keep me is shredded.
Yes.
It keeps me effortlessly lean.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Every other year for the past couple of years, there will be a period where I decide to cut.
Yes.
And at that point, I start to make sacrifices. But that's only because I have a goal in mind, similar to somebody who's like prepping for a 5K or whatever.
That's right.
I'm not a professional bodybuilder, but I find it to be really interesting to audit what it is that I'm eating, to see my body change in a different way, to see how it responds to a shift in macronutrients. And because I have this goal in mind, I start to make sacrifices. And then at a certain point, I find when you're trying to get lean, especially to single digit body fat numbers, which again is not a health goal, it's just like an aesthetic, temporary goal, I will then begin to track. And I think that tracking in that specific temporary context is really important for, I would say, two primary reasons. One, because you want to, with a goal in mind, you want to make sure that you're not just spinning your wheels, right? You want to make sure that you're actually like trending towards that goal. And you also want to make sure that you're not trending towards that goal too rapidly, where you risk muscle loss.
Yeah.
So that's where I think tracking becomes.
You're learning from it. You're having fun. You said something really important there, Max. Effortless. There's this myth around a healthy and fit lifestyle, this ideal that we're talking about, let's say, where you are restricted. Okay. So here's why this is a myth. So let's say somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh man, you eat healthy. I just want to be free to eat whatever I want." That's actually a myth. You're not free. You're actually chained to poor health, worse life quality, mental fogginess, poor sleep, hormone disruption. In reality, you're not free. What's free is what you're talking about. You are free from the things that really chain you, which is poor health and mobility. So it's not restrictive, it's actually freedom. But the way to get there, let me put it this way, you can't hate yourself into better health. Hating yourself is unhealthy. And the data on that, by the way, is very interesting. If you just hate yourself enough, your immune system will start to react in ways that like your body and you are the enemy. If you look at certain mental disorders, kind of in the context of what I'm talking about, and its correlation to autoimmune disorders, it's really interesting. So you can't hate yourself into better health. What you're doing is caring for yourself, which feels good. The result of which is a freedom to have a life of vitality. So, and I love communicating that to people because they have this idea. A lot of times we have this idea around a healthy lifestyle. We use the word sacrifice, but sometimes sacrifice means all these wonderful things that I just love. And it's like, it's a better life. It's a better life, but do it from a place of like, no, I'm going to care. I care about myself. What does that look like? How does that feel? It's a process. If you've never really done it before, it is a learning process, but the result of which is a relationship that feels stressless, not stressful. Oftentimes the macro counting, the getting down to the nitty gritty and I got to track everything is a stressful lifestyle. And that is not healthy. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah. I think loving yourself is in part acknowledging that you have to choose your hard. You have to choose your difficult.
Yes.
You know? And if that choice for you looks like cutting back on the consumption of the ultra processed foods, well, you're choosing that hard right there in that moment. But what you're saving yourself from potentially is a way harder hard down the road when we're talking about the onset of chronic disease and
totally. But it's also this. Again, I like to sell it because I think it's important that we sell this idea effectively. Okay, over time, you enjoy and crave those things. So it's not like you're going about your day being like, man, I can't eat that candy bar. Oh, I can't eat that pizza or that. Like, you're not doing that. Most of the time, you're like, ooh, I can't wait to eat this food that makes me feel so good. So you actually develop a relationship with these things where it's enjoyable. Because I think people have this picture in their head where you're going around miserable because you can only eat these foods, and I have to eat whole natural foods, and I got to eat protein, and I really don't want. Over time, everybody, it actually is actually quite enjoyable because you start to develop a better awareness around. Look, our minds are not geared towards. I'll put it differently. Our minds are very well geared towards things that are stressful, scary, and anxious. So, and trust me, this is going to go in the direction of food. For me to feel grateful and blessed, I have to consciously, at first, note the things that I feel grateful and blessed about. So you hear about gratitude practice. So I started doing this thing where, and at first it was every other hour. So every other hour I had an alarm that would go off on my phone, silent alarm. So if I looked at it, it reminded me. And then I would note of all the things over the last couple hours that I was grateful for. Now, the reason why I did this is because when I pray at night, I'm thankful for all the stuff during the day. It started to get repetitive. Thankful for my family, thankful for my job. And I'm like, let me try doing this throughout the day to see if I notice. And sure enough, it's like, my little silent alarm would go off and I'd be like, I'm really thankful for that joke that Justin told me. Or I'm really thankful for it was sunny outside. Or, oh my God, that hug I got earlier. Or, I feel pretty good for my workout yesterday. And what ended up happening is I trained myself to notice these things more. This is what happens when you start to eat in a healthy way for the right reasons over time, is you start to enjoy it and want to do more of it. And that's the light at the end of the tunnel, is that this becomes effortless. It's not stressful. But you got to get through that initial awareness piece, because for so long, what most people have probably lived most of their life is the only thing I really have connected food to is its immediate enjoyment and palatability. And so what is this other stuff that you're talking about? It's funny. I would do this with clients, and I would have to ask them questions to get them to become aware of these things. So they'd come in and, how was your morning today? How do you feel? How much coffee did you have? I'm like, you know what? I don't need as much coffee. I have more energy. Oh, that's cool. And I'd ask them these questions how's your digestion? And how's your skin feeling? And, look, you're stronger. Did you notice you did 2 more reps? And then little by little, they would start to be like, oh my God, I'm noticing all these great things. I really enjoy eating this way. I really enjoy living this way. And then you develop this relationship now. Because look, here's the fact. This is not a temporary thing. You're going to be in your body for the rest of your life here. This is something, ideally, if I were to ask somebody, what would be the ideal thing for you around fitness and health? What would be just the most ideal thing? And you would always boil down to, well, I want to enjoy doing this for the rest of my life. That's how you get there.
Man, I love that exercise, that practice. That's so cool.
Oh, it's Max. It's so wild. It totally changes the filter of how I see things, because it's so easy for me to be annoyed or anxious or scared because my brain's wired to already do that. So I don't need to consciously be like, what am I annoyed about? Like, that's going to happen. I have to consciously be like, what was I grateful for over the last couple hours? And there's always a few things. And then little by little, it's like, I just start noticing things. And next thing you know, I feel so blessed.
Wow. Yeah, because by the end of the day, your brain is just a fantastic. It's so fantastically good at editing out all of the little micro moments that you would have otherwise otherwise would be able to acknowledge, as your brain cuts them out.
Yes,
and just remembers like the big stuff.
You know what's funny is our default is to think that everything should be perfect, So anything that's away from perfect is like, oh, it's terrible or whatever. I'll get this question asked. Just this again. This is more of a spiritual question, but it's like, why is there so much suffering? Why are there so many bad things that happen in the world? It's like you're asking the wrong question. The more interesting question, in my opinion, is why is there anything good at all? And then when you look at it from that perspective, then you start to notice the blessings that exist.
Damn, beautiful. I do want to talk about, because again, these GLP-1 drugs are now going to likely be prescribed with even broader,
for sure,
broader access, broader reach for people. And I'm not against the drugs. I know that in our space there's a lot of polarity. People are either 100% for them,
sure,
or 100% against them. I'm in the middle. I'm grateful that we have access to them for people who have just spent a lifetime of yo-yo dieting, right?
Same.
Now, if you do happen to be on one of these GLP-1 drugs, what are the best kinds of foods to eat?
Great question. So let me touch on just the GLP-1s in general. I think at some point about 2/3 of Americans will be on a GLP-1 at some point, and they're getting better. I mean, now there's GLP-3 that'll be coming out soon. That is even more effective than the first and second generation ones. If in terms of medical intervention, there's no medical intervention we've ever had that is this promising when it comes to helping people with obesity. And there seems to be some anti-inflammatory effects and some reduction in other addictive behaviors because of the way that it acts on the reward system. So I think they're phenomenal. I think they're great interventions in the context of being used appropriately and with a coach. If you're going to use these, work with a coach that's going to help you with strength training and is going to coach you with nutrition, because GLP-1s will significantly reduce your appetite. And if you just follow your appetite on a GLP-1, you'll eat very low calories, which will result in weight loss, but will also result in significant muscle loss. Okay. Why do you lose muscle when you eat so low calories? Your body is trying to meet its energy intake with its energy demands with your energy intake. And muscle is very metabolically active. So it's just your body's trying to slow its metabolism down, because now I'm only eating 1,200 calories a day. And so you'll lose muscle. And so what the data will show is 40% of the weight that you'll lose will come from muscle mass. Not good. You don't want to trade one problem for another. Being under-muscled is at least as bad for you as being overweight, at least. In fact, if you're underweight in general, mortality risk with people who are really underweight is actually worse than people who are overweight. And you're actually seeing, and I'm sure you've seen the alarming studies, osteopenia risk goes up higher because of GLP-1 in some of these studies. And that's, again, you lose muscle, your bone mass will also.
Well, it's called, and there's the sarcopenic obesity phenotype.
That's right.
It's not good. It's being under-muscled and over-fat.
That's right. So now that doesn't mean the GLP-1s are causing that. They don't cause muscle loss. In fact, the data shows that they have a slight muscle preserving effect. Nonetheless, you eat low calories, you don't strength train, you're going to lose muscle. So when you're on a GLP-1, it's even more important you hit your protein targets, and it's very important you strength train appropriately. What is appropriate strength training, aside from the individual variances that people have? What does that generally look like for someone on a GLP-1? Not a lot. And here's why. When you cut your calories, when you cut your energy intake down, your recovery ability also drops. So if you take a woman who's, let's say, 50 pounds overweight, she goes in a GLP-1, now her caloric intake has dropped to around 1,500 calories because her appetite's so low. If you work out a lot on 1,500 calories, you're going to fry yourself. It's just not going to work. So strength training on a GLP-1 probably looks like 1 or 2 days a week, full body strength training, or 1 or 2 exercises a day if you want to do it every day. So it's like 15 minutes a day of strength training. And people, is that enough? Yeah, strength training is great. You just send the signal and then your body does the rest. So on a GLP-1, appropriate strength training, protein intake becomes even more important. Supplementation is probably, I would say, is more valuable for a GLP-1 user than it is for the average person. So we've worked now with a lot of people on a GLP-1. Actually ran a group of people on GLP-1. And hitting protein intake, like I mentioned earlier, the targets is hard for the average person. And I'll back up. If you're watching this and you're not on a GLP-1, you're like, I'm going to try eating 150 grams of protein a day. It's hard. Go ahead and try doing it. It's very difficult. Go on a GLP-1. It's even harder because your appetite's so protein shakes become very valuable in this population because it's hard for them to get that many grams of protein. So what I found with these people, and I'm encouraging them, no, you got to eat the protein. I can't eat that much protein. I feel like gagging. I just don't have the appetite. Protein shakes become very valuable, and they help preserve muscle, especially in combination with strength training.
Now, we are hearing a lot about creatine lately, right? Me as a fitness enthusiast, you as a fitness professional, music to our ears, right?
Yes.
That more and more people, especially women, are talking about creatine. Should somebody on a GLP-1 drug also be taking creatine?
Everybody. Creatine is the one supplement I'll recommend to pretty much anybody. Almost without exception, but pretty much anybody. It's good for your body, your organs, your brain, muscle. Indirectly, it's probably a great fat loss supplement just because through its muscle building effects. But definitely for someone on GLP-1 because their overall consumption of natural creatine is going to go down as well. So yes, creatine also helps pull water into cells. So this isn't bloat. So it's not the kind of bloat you'll get out under the skin. It's hydration in your muscles, and creatine helps draw that in. This is often not talked about. GLP-1s affect your appetite. They also affect your desire to drink water, and a significant, it's a minority percentage, but a significant percentage of our fluid intake also comes from food. So now you're eating 1,500 calories. You're not as thirsty, and what you'll find with people is they're just not consuming enough water. And so with these clients, I was really conscious of make sure you drink this much water. Typically, I'd recommend a half a gallon, on the upper end, a gallon of water a day. I would encourage electrolytes for these people as well. And creatine was always up there with the protein supplement.
Wow. Yeah, I had no idea about the fluid intake stuff.
Yeah, and coaching is really, if you're going to go on a GLP-1 and you want to make it as effective as possible, maximum fat loss, minimum muscle loss, or maybe even build muscle with the possible result of coming off at some point, a good coach, and I'm going to say good, is invaluable. We've coached now enough people on GLP-1s where we've coached people off GLP-1s. And if you combine, there's interesting things that happen with the GLP-1 just through the behaviors. But if you're on a GLP-1, you come off, appetite does go back up. So you will get your appetite back. The behaviors that you had around certain foods will dampen when you come off, especially if you've been on a GLP-1 for 6 months or a year, because the neural networks that you've created around certain foods start to weaken. But you still need to create behaviors around things that were triggers before, like stress or boredom or whatever. You have to replace those behaviors with better behaviors, and a good coach will help you do that. Otherwise, what tends to happen is that people come off a GLP-1 and then 3-4 months later they want to go back on because it's I'm gaining the weight back. This isn't working. So a good coach has that strategy in mind. So when you're on the GLP-1, okay, you're still stressed. Maybe you don't have the appetite, but let's figure out how to deal with the stress in a way that's going to stick after the GLP-1. And then we've had success with that with clients. I also like, I hope the pharma industry moves in this direction. I like compounded GLP-1s versus the brand name ones, not because of the price, although they are cheaper. It's the same exact drug. I like the compounded because you can titrate the dose. So when you go on tirzepatide, or Wegovy or Ozempic, it typically comes in these, this is your dose. There's and this is again from interviewing experts in the field, people who've worked with GLP-1s for decades, right? So like Dr. Seeds and other doctors. There is an individual variance with how people react and respond to them. And so I think the dosing needs to be more individualized. And I also, again, through experience and through interviewing these experts, when people come off, it seems to be more effective to scale down than come off, not just drop, right out the gates like cold turkey.
That makes sense. I do want to touch on the resistance training side of things briefly because, one thing that I see all the time in my gym, and, no shade, no judgment to anybody who's in the gym. I mean, it's great that they're there, but I often see a lot of people, just doing these like low intensity, repetitive, movements and stopping well short of what might be perceived, at least from my vantage point as an outsider, from failure. And I know that intensity is a really important variable, especially when it comes to preserving muscle when on a cut, which anybody who is on one of these drugs effectively is on a cut of sorts. So maybe you can speak to the intensity required for weight training when trying to preserve muscle.
There's value in exercise because you're moving. Okay. So movement is good. It's great. Being active is good. Strength training, however, is a very specific form of exercise that needs to be performed with intent because the goal isn't just to move. Otherwise, why strength train? Just go for a walk. Okay. So I'm not in here just moving and sweating, with dumbbells. Again, just go for a walk. You're better off doing that, safer. Strength training's goal is to elicit a adaptation response that is building strength and then through that building muscle. Okay, so strength is what we're aiming for. Muscle is the result of strength. Intensity is required. A certain level of intensity is required for that to happen. Now the question is, what's that intensity look like? It's actually quite individual, Max. Now, as you become more advanced, it's high intensity. So if you've been working out consistently for 6 months or a year, you got to train where it's hard, where I'm done with my set of 10 reps and I might have been able to do maybe 11 or 12. Like that's the intensity range that you probably are going to want to live in for most of your life. It's like, they call it 2 reps in reserve, they'll call it, or 2 reps shy of failure. Failure meaning I can't do another rep. So you got to kind of judge that. But in the beginning, very little is required to elicit any strength gains. Like if you're not doing anything right now and you do anything more than what you're used to in terms of intensity, that'll get you to build some strength. And the data on this is remarkable. Like you'll have sedentary individuals do a 30-second isometric once a week and we see 30% strength gains, in a 6-week period or whatever.
Wow.
So you don't need a lot. And the reason why I'm saying that is if you're getting started right now and you go to the gym, you're like, this is your first time in the gym in years or ever, don't go train to the intensity that is described for somebody who's been consistent. You will overdo it. And what'll happen is you'll be sore as heck. You won't be able to move, or your technique is going to be so bad that you could potentially injure yourself. And it's just not necessary. So as a trainer, when I would train people, here's what I would look for. I would look for you to have more energy at the end of your workout than you did at the beginning. And I often would want a client to say, that's it? And they'd say, yeah, that's it for now. And then the next time we trained, typically they were stronger. And so then we would progress from there. So if you're just getting started, just practicing the movements is enough. And then as you become more fit, you start to increase the intensity. And then probably, 4, 5, 6 months later, now you're training at a level of intensity where you're leaving 2 in the tank or that 2 reps in reserve.
That makes a lot of sense. Man, Sal Di Stefano, love getting you in here, man. Anytime we get to
it's always fun.
Mind meld.
I know.
Yeah. We covered some cool topics. Food and its relationship with pornography, ultra-processed foods, and its relationship to sex, and the GLP-1 drugs.
I wanted to ask, you were going to ask me about weight belts. Let's not forget that. I want to talk about that.
Yeah, picking a weight belt. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
I recently bought one. It was a pretty cheap one, like a $35 one from Amazon.
Yeah. So unless you plan on competing in a sport that uses weight belts, don't use a weight belt. So, and here's why. It does provide more stability. So you put on a weight belt and you will get more lumbar and core stability, but it changes the muscle recruitment patterns that produce that stability. So when you put a belt, without a belt, creating stability looks like bracing. Okay, it looks like everything kind of comes together and tightens. When you put a belt on, you learn to push out against the belt to create stability. Now, what's the problem or what's wrong with that? Well, if you always train with a belt on, this is the recruitment pattern that you create as a default. Then you go help your buddy move a couch. You go lift the couch, your body knows to push out against the weight belt, and you actually are less stable than you would be had you trained without a belt. So can you lift more weight with a belt? Yes, you can. But I never recommend people use a belt unless they're going to compete, or unless you're like me and you like to push the limits and you just can't get away from, your own self.
That's
in which case,
that's not my goal is not to push the limits necessarily, but it was to just provide a cue so that I would not, flex my lumbar under load.
Yeah.
Because I really do want to get a good leg workout in, but I want to protect my lumbar spine because I had, for people who don't know, I had spine surgery 8 months ago.
Yeah. No, your split stance exercises are perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. And that'll protect you from what you're looking, for what you're doing. Plus you have a bit of a special situation because of your back surgery. So if you stayed away from bilateral leg exercises for the rest of your life, you would be totally fine. You'd be functional, strong, you'd develop great muscle. You really wouldn't be missing anything.
Good to know. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're the man. I love you, bro.
Yeah. Same.
So fun. I always look forward to any chance we get to catch up, and you're just such a wealth of knowledge. So I implore all of my listeners to check out Mind Pump, and you've got all these dope programs, and you're now coaching individuals. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we've now ventured into coaching and training. So we now employ personal trainers and virtual coaches. So if someone needs, and this is just a fact. Nothing will impact somebody more positively in terms of health and fitness in the context of figuring it out, getting results, and doing it for the rest of their life like a good coach. There's nothing I can do on my podcast. There's nothing I can say that's ever going to be as effective as you working with someone who's going to guide you through the process, who's going to lead you through this, who's going to help you with the stumbling blocks, help give you grace when you mess up, because you will, like a good coach. And so we finally have, and we've waited a long time for this because our standards are very high. A great coach is amazing. A bad coach is just as bad as a good coach is, good. So we don't want anybody who is under that standard. So it's very slow growth for us. But at the moment, we have 17 trainers and coaches with the goal of being, close to 50 probably in the next, 6 months. And we do virtual coaching and in-person personal training. And it's been amazing, bro. This is like my favorite. I've always loved what I've done, but this is just, man, it's like I get to train people again almost. I get on these calls sometimes, so my trainers will get on their virtual coaching clients calls. And if I'm available, I'm always telling let me come in and talk with these people. I get to talk to these people, and it's just so rewarding.
That's amazing. And the spread of quality when it comes to coaches is probably vast. So
it is. You want a coach who's got education but good experience. And you want a coach who makes you feel good in the right way. You want a coach that's not going to make you, beat yourself up. That's going to give you a lot of grace while simultaneously holding you accountable. Somebody that helps you develop a relationship with fitness that just feels good and effortless and like, yeah, this is what I want to do forever. That's a good coach.
Love it. Well, guys, definitely check out the work that Mind Pump is putting out. Where can people find you on social media? How can they consume your content?
Yeah, you just look me up, Sal Di Stefano, Instagram, YouTube.
The most handsome man in fitness.
Stop.
With the biggest biceps.
Stop. Not even close. But thank you.
The vascularity, bro.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's Photoshop.
That's what I'm working towards. Well, thanks for coming out. Thank you guys for listening. Share this episode with friends and loved ones who may benefit from it. And I will catch you all on the next episode. Peace, everybody.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.